Yeah, we've been talking about the history of attitudes about dying, and one of the things that's striking about the culture that we live in now is it's far more secular than it used to be. And obviously there are differences depending on which particular cultures we're talking about, but there are many more people who we would identify as having secular values now than in a lot of previous ages. Has that changed the conversation about death and dying? The fact that religion is not just a given?
Well, I think it has.
Oh, I think it's profound. I think it's profoundly shaped the discussion. And this is what I was trying to say before, is if you grow up in a culture in which there's one story about what the human condition is and what happens to us after we pass, I mean, that's a pretty simple thing in many ways, but we don't live in that culture. And so we're thrown into confusion about death in particular, because there are all these competing stories, there's all these competing narratives in this secular space about what death is. And so it's like trying to listen to a radio 5 stations or 10 stations at a time. It sounds like garble. And so people just pull back and they despair. And I think that's sort of the negative part of it. I think the positive part of the secular context is that it allows us to ask other questions and to be a bit bolder. I think all of the near-death literature is secular literature in some sense. It's moving away from a singular religious worldview, and I think what we're seeing is kind of an emergent new worldview there at a very, very early stage. And so I think that's why it's so confusing, is we're just not there, and we may not get there. I'm not suggesting we need a singular worldview. I'm just saying in a secular space, all of these competing stories are going.
What do you think that emerging worldview is?
That's a work in progress. That's a work in progress. I mean, it isn't just that death has got multiple storylines now. Bear in mind that it only has multiple storylines because life has multiple storylines now. It's been a long while since life has had the single storyline, at least 50 years, some say longer. Do you remember in the 16th century, the church used to say, the Christian church used to say when you're married, that you will stay married till death do you part? Well, easy. Look at the demography of death. Yeah. So basically you get married at around 15, 16. You die, one of you will die by the time you're 22, 23. So the average life of a marriage would be what, 7 years? Any idiot can do that. Now if you marry somebody and they lay that on you, you could be with this person for 50, 60 years. You'd want to be deeply in love with that person, down to the genes, to survive that. Yeah. The game has changed. And that's the life game. So of course the death game has changed. And what characterized modernity is that people then have to go back to their actual experiences and think about, what are my experiences? Because they're the only real solid thing that we all have. And that's where the near-death experience comes in. I think people then, they say, well, this is the experience I've had. What's the story I'm going to make of this?
Right, what is the meaning? What is the meaning? Yeah, it goes back to meaning and how we can settle into it.
Yes.
So you're saying one of the things that, one of the crucial conversations to have as someone is dying, and probably on both ends, both for the person dying, also for, say, the family members, is to have those conversations about meaning.
Well, what
about, which I presume involves maybe some sort of life review. Is that important, life review?
Open questions, yes. What does this mean to you? What is the hardest part? What surprises you in this journey? What do you want? What do you need? What do you value? How can I be with you? All of those without any assumptions or expectations on the part of the supporter. Just open questions so that they get to define their journey, I think would be helpful. And same with those bereaved that are left behind. What would assist you? Some people want to talk about it, some people don't. Some people want the support of peers, some people want the journey alone. What is your story? What is your meaning?